Jesuit Lunch Hour is powered by beajesuit.org. I'm Father Bill Murphy coming to you from Detroit, Michigan.
And I'm Father Michael Rossman coming to you from Chicago.
Of course, as always, we appreciate viewer comments during the show. Today, we're thrilled to have Jesuit Father Paul Shelton as today's special guest. Father Shelton's coming to us from Cleveland, Ohio. Father Shelton, welcome so much to Jesuit Lunch Hour.
Thanks. I was wondering, is there a theme song for Jesuit Lunch Hour? I thought of this on my run this morning. So I like how you did Jesuit Lunch Hour, and then I would go right into the classic. You'd have to redo the work. I don't want to work. Give me Jesuit Lunch Hour today. Something like that.
We are going to record that this afternoon.
Right. As we say, we're always, open to viewer comments, and we're also open to, fellow Jesuit suggestions during the Jesuit Lunch Hour to make it better. So thank you, Father Shelton.
Your spirit here reminds me of the high school students, at least that I used to work with. Think of yourself as a high school student back in Columbus, Ohio. And what attracted you to go to Marquette University as an undergrad?
Yeah, great question. So nobody in my family had gone away to school is part of the context here. And I graduated high school in the last millennium, so 1999. So this was like wild, wild west. Basically, all this mail was coming in. I was reading the mail, and we couldn't afford to visit anywhere. So I knew I wanted to get out of Columbus. That was about it. And so I was looking at Catholic schools because I figured if I messed up, I could go to Mass or confession. And so I decided on Marquette because it was Catholic and they were really nice on the phone. I'm not kidding you. That is how I kind of picked. I knew nothing about what a Jesuit was, had never been to Wisconsin. I just really felt good talking to the admissions people on the telephone at Marquette University.
So subsequent to that, what have you come to love about Jesuit education?
Well, it was amazing when I got to Marquette how natural it felt as a fit, because I was so orientated towards service. I was doing a lot of service as a high schooler. My mother was very good about serving the community. And so this like natural blend between faith and justice, between service and a reflection on why we do the service was kind of how I was already wired. And then the crazy part about Marquette, at least when I went there, I don't know if this is still the case, I think 60% of the student body did some sort of service. And so everybody you meet, you'd have these great conversations and be like, oh, this person's amazing. They're doing this and this person's amazing. And I just felt a home there. I just felt, wow, these are the kind of people I want to spend my life around. And my best friends still are, I still have a couple from high school, don't get me wrong, and growing up, but a lot of them are for college, and they're these people that we're RAs and we're in campus ministry, are doing all these radical kinds of acts of service.
Great. And Father Shelton, you didn't go to Marquette thinking, okay, I think I'm going to be a Jesuit priest after I graduate. But then you joined the Jesuits after graduation. How did that come about?
Yeah, great question. So I did not really know what I wanted to do. Once again, I picked a university based upon the quality of conversation on the phone, not programs and the financials had to make sense. So it took me 2 years to declare a major, and I was so grateful for that. I had this wonderful philosophy professor, Dr. Suzanne Foster, and we would just sit and she would just talk about basically who I wanted to be. She never pushed me towards a major until my second semester of sophomore year, where she said, you have to declare one or you won't graduate in 4 years. And I said, okay, that makes sense. But she was so good about making sure I took like just the general requirements and kept options open and just kind of let me like arrive at this place. And so as I was thinking then about what I did, I ended up choosing history because I love stories. And then classical languages because I had a lot of Latin in my background in high school, and it was pretty easy to kind of tack that on. But when I thought about what I loved at Marquette, everything was about this service relationship. And I served sandwiches to the elderly, to the homeless, and went and gave communion to the elderly. I was an RA. I trained people on how to drive the community service van. So when it came time to think about what I wanted to do with my life, all these service kind of things popped in my mind, and chief among them was being a priest. Because there were great priest role models. I had priests in the classrooms. Father Michael Zepps, he literally brought in his viola and taught. I can't really act like I'm going to play the viola right now. I was going to play the viola. I can't even find the camera. All right, here we go. And then he taught us how the chord progressions developed in history. And it was just and these guys were so accessible. I would have lunch with Father Lywicki, this old guy who looked like Yoda, who was super holy. Father Matka was our dorm chaplain and was very accessible and was a great friend and still is a great friend to this day. So they never talked about joining the Jesuits with me, but when I thought about priesthood, the only form I had in my mind was diocesan priesthood, even though I had all these Jesuit friends. It never dawned on me that I could do that until I spent one summer with a group of nuns in Haiti, and they kind of put the question to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing this? You would be a really great Jesuit." And I said, "Yeah, that kind of makes sense." And so I just went. And then I came back for my senior year, talked to my friends, said, "Hey, this nun thinks I should be a Jesuit. I kind of agree." And my friends were like, "Yeah, you would be great at that." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." So I called up Tim Lannon, who was the VP of Advancement, Father Tim Lannon, running the discernment group, and said, "I'm ready to join." And he was like, "I don't even know who you are." So that's kind of how it went down. It was pretty quick.
Thanks for sharing that. What an incredibly rich college experience you had in those generous Jesuits. What are your favorite ways in your current mission at St. Ignatius High School in Cleveland? What are your favorite ways of trying to convey those same sorts of gifts to the young men you serve?
Wow, that's a great question, Bill. That's a great question. I love accompaniment, just being with people in normal kind of situations. And then the familiarity allows people then to have greater conversations. So I coach cross country. Running with kids has been great. It's a time they're not connected to any device. You're on the trail, usually in a group of 5 together for an hour. And teenagers, as much as they would like to say that just joke around all the time, eventually they'll get serious. And you're just kind of behind them. And every now and then they'll just loop you in the conversation and they'll start asking questions. And it's kind of great. It's kind of great. And likewise with the basketball team, just being around them a lot. During this time of COVID-19, I have a face sharing group with the big guys on the basketball team because I just find they're a lot of fun. So we get together every Wednesday night and talk about our highs and lows of the week and what's going on. And so just I think presence and just being around people in that way. I do a lot of sacramental things and for the community, but I think just messing around in the lunchroom with guys and laughing at their jokes is something I love because youth are pretty great, and then B is just a great way then for further conversation later.
And of course, messing around in the lunchroom was tremendous preparation for Jesuit lunch hour.
Heyo! We'll be here all week, people, at 12:30, 11:30 Central.
So, Father Shelton, you mentioned COVID-19. We're spending more time at home these days. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience of Jesuit community?
Yeah, this has been great for our community life together. We eat together, we pray together, we clean together. We have a lot of fun in the evenings, playing cards, watching shows. I just downloaded Pokemon Go, so I'm going to suggest to the community we go out one night and catch a bunch of Pokemon on our phones. But that's the thing, we can create, we had a storytelling contest the other night. We just are really, and we're very sensitive to each other as well, and at praying. So we do face sharing every Tuesday night during this time, and we talk about what scares us, what gives us hope, but we're also very sensitive. If a guy says, "I don't feel comfortable doing this," then we have to adjust and we have to kind of move with that person. And that can be hard. That can be hard because it means me changing my own narrative and just being really present to them. Because I live with 3 or 4 men who are 70 plus with pre-existing conditions. And, that really limits a lot of my freedoms in that way, but that's okay. Their company is great, and I want to keep it going. So that's a little bit of what we do, and certainly the prayer and mass together has been central.
One of the really interesting things I find about Jesuits is that they always seem to have like this other hidden thing that they've done or that they're doing that you wouldn't quite expect. You picked up a really interesting master's degree lately. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I went to Case Western University and got this degree in Master's in Positive Organizational Development and Change because I really wanted to study how do you create good processes and systems, because I really believe the Holy Spirit is in those kind of systems and processes, and that a good system can kind of buffer and survive a bad person, but a bad system will kind of ruin a good person. And so we do a great job of bringing great people together, but always trying to learn more as a church and as institutions, how we can really, it's the phrase from Alberto Hurtado, how can a fire that kindles other fires, right? How can our institutions be places that allow everybody to thrive? And how do you, and what's interesting about what I got into that, or why I studied it, was it's really kind of Ignatian, because it's about gratitude and appreciation. And when you sort of anchor in there, that's a greater starting point than maybe what traditional is, strength, weaknesses, analysis, threats, or whatever that institutions plan around. Instead of thinking like, what gifts are in this place, and how do we provide a place where everybody's gifts can kind of rise, and so they can contribute.
Yeah. Father Shelton, could you tell us a little bit about kind of what's next for you, if everything is able to happen? Both kind of what does next year look like, and then what are some of your ongoing hopes for your Jesuit life? Yeah.
So my hope always is to be a saint. I'm trying. I'm not good at it a lot of times. It's definitely in process, and the next step I hope will really help me with this in a lot of ways. It's called tertianship. Father Bill just completed this recently, but it's a stage where really to fall in love once again with God, to do that through the spirituality, the spiritual exercises of the Society of Jesus, do it through working with the poor, do it through the community and the Jesuits you do that with, and try to sort of reignite the heart in a lot of ways. It's kind of like, not that I'm in cardiac arrest or whatever, but you're getting some paddles onto your spiritual chest in a way. And so I'm scheduled to do that in Spain. We'll see, but it's a luxury too. If, I meet with the provincial soon, and my first thing is going to be, I'm free to do literally whatever you need me to do. I don't need to go to tertianship. Like if there's a need that's come up because somebody is sick or whatever, like you can send me anywhere right now. I am literally available for whatever you got. And that's exciting as a Jesuit to be in that place. That's a real wonderful place to be.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your availability in joining us for this discussion. It really has been a pleasure. I think of you as a friend, and I'm glad that now a wider world of the Jesuit family has gotten to know a little bit about you as well. This has been Jesuit Lunch Hour, powered by beajesuit.org. You can check us out again tomorrow with another interesting Jesuit at 11:30 Central Time, 12:30 Eastern Time. This has been Father Paul Shelton from Ignatius Cleveland.
I don't want to work. I just want to graduate 1 hour today.
All right, we're going to stop this now.